Welcome back to the Out of Bounds podcast. I am Gavin Williams alongside
Charlie Calieri.
And the college football playoff is here. Super exciting. Lots of storylines going around about who should have been in, who should have been out. And we have a lot of controversy that we will get into. We will. But let's take a step back. Let's go to the Heisman finalists. I will read them off. You let me know who your Heisman is, Charles, all right?
All right.
Starting off hot, we have Fernando Mendoza, quarterback from Indiana. We have Diego Pavia, the quarterback for Vanderbilt, and their historical season. We have Jeremiah Love, running back for Notre Dame. And we have Julian Sayin, the quarterback for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Who you got as your Heisman this year?
I have Fernando Mendoza. I also have him probably as my number one pick in the NFL draft, as well, unless it's the Tennessee Titans as the number one pick. But I think he's been the best player in college this season. I think he's been the most mature. I think he's been the most pro-ready. He's the most pro-ready quarterback I've seen in a few years, for sure. I like the way that he handles himself. I like the way that he does his interviews. I think he's everything that they want in a Heisman. I think he's everything that they want in a college football athlete in the modern age. And I think he is the great example of what's good with NIL.
I completely agree with everything you just said, especially with your ending statement.
He's just a great guy. He just seemed like he came from Cal, and Cal is, what they are and what they've been for the last few years. And Cignetti took a chance on him, just like Indiana took a chance on Cignetti.
Yeah.
And it's just been a great match for both of them.
It really has. A match made in heaven, especially for a guy who doesn't do anything except for LinkedIn and YouTube. He doesn't let any criticism come in. He said the only criticism that he needs to hear are from his coaches. So I love this guy.
That's a guy that you want to root for. I mean, I can see how some people are like, oh, he's corny, he's whatever. But honestly, the dude's just being real, and he's just saying what a lot of people want athletes to say, and he's the only one saying it, I guess.
He is.
So.
And I mean, especially if you're an NFL scout, you have to realize how much this guy cares about his team. He says all the time he'll die for his players.
They're flipping champs, man. They're flipping champs.
And I'm really proud of Fernando, which leads me to my point. Heisman Mendoza, congratulations. You are both of our favorites to win the Heisman Trophy. Absolutely stellar season, 32 touchdowns, 5 picks. Very efficient with the ball.
It's very weird, and we'll talk about Mendoza when we get to our predictions at the end of the episode, but a guy that we just talked about in our NFL episode, which has already come out at this point, is do you think that this guy, Fernando Mendoza, is cut the same as a Drew Brees or Phillip Rivers?
Ooh.
Or with that mentality? I feel like he's the first quarterback in a while, maybe since Joe Burrow, that has this maturity about him or this savviness that you're I know this guy, if he just literally places the ball where he wants to in the NFL, he's going to be a good quarterback because he has such a good mental on him. Just kind of like an Andrew Luck kind of scenario.
That's who I was going to compare him to, actually.
Yeah, just kind of like a guy that you know is going to be a good leader. He's very smart with the ball.
He's a well-spoken leader,
smart
too.
When he plays, and he can just do everything on the field.
He really can. I think what surprises me the most about Fernando Mendoza that I didn't know about him in years past with his past 2 seasons at Cal was the maturity on him. But more importantly, not except for the maturity, it's the poise he has. The poise he has in the pocket. The poise he is as a person. Just an overall mature and he's miles ahead of a lot of people in college football when it comes to decision making, what he does on the field, but more importantly, what he does off the field. The way he responds to reporters, the way he holds himself accountable for everything, the way he talks about his teammates, as his brothers. He's just
his actual brother. That's his backup.
Yeah, that's his backup. Yeah, and his brother's the one who told him to come to Indiana.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I just love the story behind this guy. I love the energy, the raw emotion he really shows on post-game interviews is absolutely unmatched. And this guy is purely just happy to be an Indiana Hoosier.
You can just tell that he cares. Obviously, it's the underlying tone that what we're trying to get at.
Yes.
And I think that caring about the program that you play for and having that pride is something that's been lost the last few years.
It really has.
Maybe since Joe Burrow, like I was saying, when he changed his name to the EUX, I mean, that was a moment. That was a moment for LSU.
The Burrow,
that was a moment for everybody. And Mendoza, I guess, isn't playing specifically into that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's playing into the best season in Indiana Hoosier history. And he understands the opportunity that they have right now.
And shout out to Mendoza one more time on bringing Indiana back to Big Ten champions for the first time since 1967,
Wow.
and first outright Big Ten champions since 1945. So
Absolutely huge.
Love that.
And let's get into our next topic right now, because
absolutely,
we sat down, we were talking about doing this episode.
this is a
and we were
long
like,
talk.
We don't want to just predict the bracket, which we will do. We don't want to just do that because it would be about a 10-minute episode and it would just be us rambling about our predictions. But we want to actually come up with a solution about this thing. There's been a lot of talk the last few weeks about the best way to work the college football playoff. And we sat down yesterday and we came up with our best version of what we think the NCAA or the college football playoff or NCAA football, whatever it is, has to do to implement this. We think this would solve everything for everybody. It would make everybody happy. It would make the networks happy, make the schools happy, make the players happy, make the fans happy. And I think that's the best part about this scenario that we're going to lay out in just a second.
And also, I just want to point out the factor of how we got to this decision, because it wasn't just a simple, oh, wow, that's a great idea. This was a back and forth debate for about an hour of just us rambling off disagreements, agreements. This was just
and it's honestly not that much of a, it's a big change, but it's not that much stuff that we have. But it's enough where it took us a lot of thinking to get to that point. So
it did.
I'm excited to lay it out right now.
Go for it, man.
The first thing we wanted to lay out was a lot of the talk has been about the amount of teams. 12 teams, is that the right amount? Is the 4 teams, do they get a bye, whatever? Do we go to a 24? Is that what we do? Do we double the field? So it's basically just the ranked teams that get in and then a group of 5. Like, is that what we do? We settled on 16. Happy medium, right in the middle. It would just force, 4 rounds. Everybody plays all 4 rounds. You have to win 4 games. Go win 4 games, you're a national champion kind of thing.
Exactly.
That's what we're going to do.
And our thought process, too, sometimes, especially in off years, 24 will be way too many teams.
I think even this year, I think you get to 16, and I think that's a good cutoff. And then, after that, there would be some really good competitive teams. And I'm even including my team, Michigan Wolverines.
Yeah.
I think we would be a very competitive team in a college football playoff game, but in a 24-team playoff, we're not really competing with anybody, and especially not in a 16-team playoff this year. So I think when you get to that lower, when you get down to the bottom of that rankings, which is still the top echelon of college football, they're still not good enough to compete for the national championship, which is just crazy to think if you really think about how different everybody is. But second point we want to make here, Notre Dame needs to go into a conference.
Yep.
Sick of this thing, man, where last week they kind of just skated by because they didn't get to play in a conference championship game, but they weren't in the scenario as maybe an Ole Miss where they were just good enough, to get in, or in Oregon, they were kind of just sitting there, not in their conference championship game. Notre Dame, if they're in a spot like a BYU, which they were close to being ranked, and they play and they're in the Big Ten and they have to play in Oregon or a Indiana or an Ohio State, or if they're in the SEC, or if they were in the Big 12 and they had to play Texas Tech and that was the championship game matchup, they might have been out of this playoff if they lost that game. So I think moving them into a conference was better for everybody, and especially in this scenario, the independence will not be a thing, and it will be all conference-based basically for obviously the regular season schedule and for something that we want to implement called Resume Week.
Yep.
I think Resume Week is a great idea that we both came up with. This is the main discussion that we came to, and it took us a while to get to the name Resume Week, but that's what we came with.
Hey, it got there eventually. It got there.
So basically, Resume Week is the week of the conference championship games, which will be on the normal week, which is, as we're recording this, last week, but the week before the Army-Navy game. And
conference championship week.
And the biggest point we wanted to do with this is keep that game by itself. I mean, the Army-Navy game being by itself, it's been that way since 2009, I'm pretty sure, was the first time they did that. And ever since then, that game has just grown in popularity every year. Obviously, it's like one of the most popular games of the season, regardless, because Army and Navy, and it's unreal, and it's like the best.
Awesome.
It's the best. But anyway, keeping that game on its own week is something that we really wanted to prioritize. Not making this kind of, we talked about a mini bracket with each conference, but we settled on this same kind of structure where the top 2 teams play in their conference championship game, but the Resume Week kind of goes into what they were talking about with Vanderbilt and how they applied to play a game against another team. I think the presumed team was Miami, I'm pretty sure. And basically that would be a resume builder for one of those teams to get into the playoff.
Yeah.
And basically now, with this now, it'll be, if you're not in the conference championship game, you will be selected for a matchup within your conference. So a similar record team based on the standings in your conference. Only the top 8 teams in each conference will be eligible for Resume Week. So only the top 8 teams, and maybe for the group of 5, it's only the top 4 maybe. I'm not really sure how that's going to work, but realistically, those are the only teams, the top 8 in each conference, who have a chance to get in the playoff. You think about it, even if it's 8 SEC teams that have a chance, you have 8 teams outside of the SEC that are going to be in that field. So, even if all 8 teams are going to be in the field, there's still a chance that one of them gets knocked out or whatever. Anyway, that would be 8 campus games in their quarterfinals for the actual playoff when you get there. No buys for that. And then the top 5, or the top group of 5 team, top ranked group of 5 team, will get in like normal. And this
Give them
year,
something to play for.
And this year it's a little bit different, obviously, because Tulane was that other conference champion. There won't be as much of an incentive to be your conference champion, but it will be an incentive in and of itself just to be the champion, because you're not missing out on, you're not worried about losing the game as much because there's other teams that are playing that also could lose. Yeah. So there's not really a disadvantage if you're a BYU to being in that Big 12 championship game this year, because they would have gotten in the 16-team playoff.
They would have,
if that was the scenario here. But we went through all the games last week, or the standings from last week, of what the conference championship games, or when the conference championship games were, and what those other Resume Week matchup games would have been. Mm-hmm. So basically with this, it can either be on the Friday or Saturday of conference championship week, whether it be a group of 5 team, or you want to split it between 2 games one day, 2 games the next day. It could be campus games for the higher seeds if you want to change it that way. They could all be hosted at one venue, something we talked about that'd be pretty cool if it was like 2 days and the SEC there was 2 games in Atlanta each day, mm-hmm. or the Big Ten if there's 2 games in Lucas Oil each day, something like that. Or if you split into 2 venues for each conference, so 2 teams from the or 4 teams from the Big Ten go play in Lucas Oil, 4 teams go play in Lambeau, something like that. Like something like that, where they mix it up. But these would be the conference matchups from last week for Resume Week, which creates some great matchups that would potentially get some people into the playoffs and knock some people out. So here are the matchups right here. From the ACC, the 3-seed Miami Hurricanes would play the 4-seed Pittsburgh Panthers. The 5-seed SMU Mustangs would play the 6-seed Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. I'm not going to go through the whole, names for all of them every time. The 7-seed Cal would play 8-seed Clemson. So, like, a game like that doesn't mean as much, but for other conferences, and maybe even for the ACC in a different year, that really does make a ton of difference in the conference. And
specifically, another reason to have Resume Week also could be to get you over the threshold for bowl eligibility.
Yeah, especially for those lower ranked teams in the conference, because you could have 2 teams at 5 and 7, and one of them's going to get in and one of them's going to be out, and that's going to be pretty exciting too. Or it's just going to be even to get ranked at the end of the season. If you're a team like Clemson, and you're not saying this year maybe, but you're on the bubble of being ranked, and you win that game against Cal, and you're the 8th seed, and you beat the 7th seed, you're still beating a better team. Maybe Cal's ranked at that point, and maybe you sneak in there. So it's just another layer of it. And obviously, there could be this whole thing about, if guys want to opt out or whatever, maybe in that scenario you just bring up the next team. Yeah. You don't really want to start that snowball effect. So anyway, still on with the matchups here.
It's also the point of rewarding the top 8 teams, and
you just don't want to we're trying to not de-incentivize the conference championship game. We want
it there
to want to be in that game and want to play and win that game, and not worry about if they lose, if they're going to be out. Because also with this week, we talked about how the committee could look at it as just a wash for everybody, as this is just a game that you play just to literally for your resume. You don't really count it towards your record, you just count it towards your resume. Yeah. Or you count it towards your record, which would probably be the case, because that's what conference championship games count as.
Yep.
And that would just be another factor of the standings for the season. So I'm not sure if you want to extend that throughout the whole conference, or just the top 8 or whatever, or top 6 or whatever you want to do. That's kind of the structure that we have right there. But for the last 3 power conferences, let's go through those matchups right here. This would be a big one. Number 3 Oregon versus number 4 USC.
Yeah.
Is that a scenario where if USC wins that game, they get in the playoff? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe not this year, but in a year past, that could be the scenario. Mm-hmm. In a 16-team playoff for sure, that could be the scenario. 5-seed Michigan would go probably at home and play Iowa. the number 6 seed. Then Illinois, the 7 seed, would play Washington, the 8 seed. So that'd be another interesting matchup too that maybe you don't get throughout the season, and maybe you do get it at the end of the season if they don't play each other. Big 12, number 3 Utah versus number 4 Houston. Could be another interesting scenario there. Number 5 Arizona versus number 6 Arizona State. So another opportunity here for another rivalry game in each conference, which is another layer of this as well. And then Iowa State and Kansas State, another rivalry as the 7 and 8 matchup in the Big 12 there. And then the SEC, this is where it really gets important, especially seeding-wise for all these teams.
And specifically when we were first going over this resume week and how we can work a way to fix this, we highlighted the SEC as to why we have the 8 teams. You know, if we had other conferences maybe that we looked at first, it might just be 6, but
might be 4.
Yeah, but with the SEC, you have to do 8 because all 8 teams or top 7 do have a legit shot of getting into the playoff.
And you can't. And also another reason is, maybe the ACC, the 7-8 game, Cal Clemson is not the caliber that the 7-8 game is in the SEC. But, it's still a power conference, and you still have to have some guidelines. You can't just pick and choose what conferences get 8 teams and what gets 6 and what gets 4 and what gets 2 or whatever.
It's all uniform.
So maybe in this scenario, once again, it would be 8 for the power conferences, maybe 6 or 4 for the group of 5 teams, maybe.
Yeah.
I think it would definitely be less for the group of 5 because there's less important games.
Absolutely.
Usually smaller conferences, too. But anyway, the SEC matchups here would be number 3, Ole Miss, versus number 4, Texas A&M. So you're getting 2 playoff teams right here who would definitely be in the 12-team playoff as they are right now, but would definitely, regardless of if they win, be in the 16-team playoff and potentially swap seeds depending on what happens.
I was just about to say, this also is great for, if they do fix the calendar, that's awesome, but this would be a great scenario to see where Ole Miss ranks against all these teams, and if they find a way to gut one out, it helps them out, but if they find a way to lose, they're going to drop a couple seeds. But it's something that you would like to see going into that matchup, because now we're all wondering, does Ole Miss really deserve to be a 6 seed? Do we know if they're going to be good without Lane Kiffin?
This is the other part that we wanted to add in also, is that with this, we didn't write this down, but it would also be a fixed timeline for the transfer portal, for coaches leaving. It would be after the season. Hard deadline. I don't know why it's not already. I don't care if the tampering still exists throughout the season. Just don't announce that a guy is taking a job somewhere else, or don't have the rumors flying around. I don't care if LSU would be talking to Lane Kiffin the day before the national championship or a playoff game. Until after the season, that last game of the national championship, when it hits midnight, and they're like, it's a new league year. Quote, league year. That's what they should really transition to. And now you can sign with a new team. It's kind of like the NBA free agency, July 1st at midnight. You always get 1 or 2 guys that sign right away. That's kind of how it is. So why can't a Lane Kiffin sign at midnight to sign with LSU after they lose, or after the national championship game? I don't know why. I don't know why players can't transfer that time either. I don't know why it's right now. That's another story for another day. But 5 seed in the SEC would be Texas, lining up against their rival, their bitter rival, Oklahoma. And this is a situation right here where you get a higher seed in Texas in the SEC, but they're out of the playoff, and Oklahoma is a lower seed, and they're in the playoff. So definitely a scenario where Texas wins this game in a game where they lost earlier in the year that really cost them their spot in the playoff. Ultimately, they can get some payback here. And this could be a game at the Cotton Bowl. It could be at AT&T. It could be at Oklahoma or Texas.
It could be in Austin,
That would be very interesting, and I think that this is one of the games that we wanted to highlight on here as a swing game of why this would be so important to have, and why it'd be so fun, right? Too. Imagine sitting down on your couch and being able to watch 8 more games minimum, if not 12, I think, per day. More than the conference championship games. All those games mean something to those players, hopefully. It's just another kind of playoff scenario, I guess, for the teams too. It's kind of a play-in week. That was the other name that we had, was play-in week. But we like resume week because you can really build that resume and try to get in that playoff. And then the last matchup we had here, 7 seed Vanderbilt versus number 8 Mizzou. This could be a game where Vandy gets another win against another solid team, and maybe in this scenario Oklahoma loses and now Vandy goes in front of them, or Texas loses and Vandy goes in front of them. It's just something interesting. Once again, another layer that gets added on, another layer of importance of these conference games, and just gives another week of importance for a lot of teams, for 6 extra teams in each conference.
And we just think that this would not only solve the world's problems with this whole debate, but it's always a battle of resumes at the end of the week. And at the end of the day, this college football playoff committee studies resumes. That's why Miami got in over Ohio State, because of the head-to-head. I mean, that's what the biggest thing in this college football playoff is. So why not make it a big week itself?
And they always say it's tough to beat a team twice. So a team like Pitt playing Miami, and you could see they'd be like, 3-4 Miami versus Pitt, right? Be like, Miami should win that game, right? Well, mind you, Duke won the ACC championship, so anything can happen. But those teams just played, I think, a week prior, and Miami spanked Pitt. So why couldn't Pitt come back and just spank them back?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's another, obviously, I keep saying it, another layer of this thing that you could peel back and say, why wouldn't we want this? What is so bad about having an extra game for some of these guys? Because they want to play. I mean, when you get to the NFL, you're playing 17 games a year. You're playing how many in college right now?
12.
If you're paying these guys, you might as well play them more.
Yeah.
So add another week games, add another opportunity for these players and coaches to show themselves and show their resumes and show these the fans, and give it to the fans too. I mean, you get a lull in the season here of 2 weeks potentially without your team playing. And I remember it even sucked when Michigan was in the Big Ten championship and you would still have that week after and you would go to the playoff. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine having 2 weeks in between and you're still going to the playoff, like in Ole Miss, especially the last 2 weeks that they've had, all the stuff that's gone on. So much uncertainty, so much riding on that. But now let's get into the playoff. It's settled.
Let's do it.
It is settled. It was settled last Sunday as we're recording this. And the selection process came down to 3 teams, essentially. Came down to Notre Dame, came down to Miami, and it came down to Alabama. Now, for me, personally, I knew Alabama was probably going to get in. That was the thought. So
if they punished them, I would have been pissed.
So then it came down to, because BYU lost that game to Texas Tech, which I don't think people are talking enough about how important that was to Miami eventually getting in and Notre Dame squeaking out. But it really shifted that seeding and matched up Miami and Notre Dame back-to-back with each other in the rankings, which ultimately, rule of thumb is teams play head-to-head, and one of them beats one, they should be ranked above the other one. And that's what they went with. They went with their gut, and I think it was the right decision.
I think so, too. I think, obviously, it sucks for Notre Dame just because you ended on a 10-game winning streak against
and it
opponents.
Slowly fell, too. It was like last week they fell at 1 or 2 spots in the rankings, which wasn't a huge deal at the time, but it ultimately cost them their spot.
Plus, you have Miami losing to 2 unranked teams in the middle of their season. That's what you don't like to see, but at the end of the day, head-to-head is still head-to-head. Who won that game? I don't care if it was week 1. It's still played. It still counts towards a record. And Miami won that game. And Mario Cristobal is happy they got in, but he does feel bad for Notre Dame. And you know what? Join a conference.
This is the scenario we want. I mean, exactly what we were talking about. I mean, this is a preventable situation for Notre Dame. They would be a top 8 team in one of these Power 4 conferences. They would play a resume week game. They would be able to not sit on the couch and get kicked out without playing a game and complain about it. And Miami also did not play a game and ended up getting in, which is just, if you really just think about it, it's nuts.
It's an advantage.
But it makes sense if you know like how everything went up and down and how it all stacked up with each other literally. But at the end of the day, if Notre Dame was in a conference, they would be in this playoff right now. So win or lose, I think in that resume week game, I think it still gives them another game to play, and they probably win it too. I mean, if they're in the ACC, they're probably matching up against. They're probably in the ACC championship game, which is just another layer of it too, that they could win the ACC every single year or be in the Big Ten, playing Oregon in the 3-4 matchup in the resume week game for Big Ten every year. So, I don't know, another thing to peel back there. But Miami and Bama did get in.
They did
as the 9 and the 10 seed. And let's get into our predictions right now. Really excited for this bracket, for this playoff. I think it's gonna be better than last year. I hope.
I think so too.
I'm not saying that the first round games are gonna be better than last year, because the last year the first round games were not good. But this year we have 2 group of 5 teams in the quarterfinals. Not necessarily a terrible thing, but not necessarily a great thing as well.
Yeah.
Let's start on that Friday, the first game of the college football playoff on December 19th on Friday at 8 p.m. Get your popcorn ready. It is the Alabama Crimson Tide taking on the Oklahoma Sooners in Norman, Oklahoma. Campus game. This is the best part about the whole thing.
This is
the campus games. Being able to play those games, those meaningful games at home. It reminds you a lot of, conference championship games in Group of 5. Reminds you a lot of basketball games for, in March when they're doing their conference tournaments, when they play them at the home sites of the arena, like the Ivy League, those leagues like that. College football, though, for an Oklahoma to be playing at home against an Alabama in a playoff game, it's unreal. Gavin, what are your thoughts about this game, and who do you have winning?
My first immediate thoughts, I'm going to get a shout-out. Tulane opted to have everything canceled on that Friday night for that huge game against North Texas. I'm talking classes. I'm talking anything you have on campus, because head coach says, I want the students to be hammered. He literally said that in an interview. What did Oklahoma just do? They have everything canceled on December 19th, but they actually made it happen. So all those students are going to be plowed, and they're going to be excited for this game against Alabama that they just saw in the regular season. With Alabama losing this game, I don't see Alabama losing twice. I think they played their worst brand of football last week. I think they have a lot to study from. I think their defense can improve. I think their offense finally improves. Give me the Crimson Tide moving on to face Indiana in the Rose Bowl.
This was probably the toughest game of the first round for me to pick.
I completely agree.
And I really like the way that John Mateer plays, obviously beating my Michigan Wolverines earlier in the year, which knocked us out of the playoffs too.
Oh, yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think that Ty Simpson and that Crimson Tide team have a really bad taste in their mouth and a really bad kind of perspective from the rest of the country right now on their team. Our perception of their team right now from the rest of the country, saying that they're not as good, they shouldn't have got in general. And I think they're going to slap some people in the face this week on the road, going into Norman and beating the Sooners. I have them going on to play Indiana.
I also do. Going on to our next matchup.
Saturday, noon Eastern time. It will be the Miami Hurricanes going to Kyle Field. And taking on the Texas A&M Aggies. What a game that's going to be. Two of the top quarterbacks in the country, two of the top offenses in the country, and two teams that, people have said have not been tested this year, honestly. I think there's a lot of comparison around these two teams. I think they're very similar in how they play, how they're perceived by people. And I think with that, a team that, momentum really matters in college football. One team's going up right now, has a lot of momentum behind them. And one team had a big loss the other week that really has just spiraled their season downwards, in my opinion. And I'm going to have Miami going into Kyle Field and taking down Texas A&M in probably the biggest game in college field history. But, that Marcel Reed-led offense, I think, will struggle against that Miami defense. And a Texas A&M team that's been struggling the last few weeks, I think, will be sent home early.
You said it best. This is the biggest game in Kyle Field history. Okay? That is one of the greatest fan bases in the entire country. If you're telling me that Carson Beck's going to be the one to take that down, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's not going to be Mario Cristobal's led Hurricanes. No, it's not going to be. It's going to be Texas A&M getting a bounce-back win where they need it most to move on to the Elite Eight of this. I don't know what to call it.
Yeah, I don't know if they have a name for it. I think
they don't really, but I don't know. I mean,
it's like the New York Six Bowls week. It's like the first week of that because they play 4 of them.
Yeah. Whatever it is, nobody's walking into Kyle Field and winning this week. I can tell you that. And I'm going to tell you that Texas A&M, those Aggies are going to be buzzed to play again. They have a sour taste in their mouth. And they're ready to explode all over an awful, awful, awful matchup for Miami, because this is not an easy one to walk into. I don't think a single ACC team should have made it. But then again, I would like them over Notre Dame. But I think that Kyle Field's going to be too electric. They're not even going to be able to hear. There's going to be a lot of bad play calling. And give me the Aggies.
It's totally fair, every point that you made. That's going to be, I think, I said that the Alabama-Oklahoma game was the hardest game to pick. I think that's going to be the best game, though, of the first round. Moving on now to the game at, let me check right now so I have it right, 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. And it will be in Oxford, Mississippi, when the Tulane Green Wave go in and play the Mississippi Rebels in Oxford. That should be a great game without Lane Kiffin, obviously. And Tulane, their coach on the way out as well.
And they played this game earlier in the season.
They did, and Tulane got spanked.
Spanked.
Absolutely spanked, which was a big storyline, obviously, when this game got chosen and selected by the field. That's just how it got matched up with the... It was not supposed to be this matchup at all.
Yeah.
But Duke ended up winning that game, and it's supposed to be Virginia in this game, but it is actually Tulane. I think it works out better for Tulane, though. Going to Oxford and playing this team, it's going to be different this time around. I think this game's going to be closer than a lot of people expect.
I agree.
But I still think Ole Miss takes it. I still think that team is just overall better, but I would not be shocked if Tulane goes in there and wins this game.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. This will be closer than people expect. I just think that Chambliss-led offense will have a great day against that Tulane Green Wave defense. And I think they have a lot of... if there's a team that probably has the most sour taste in their mouth in this playoff, it is the Ole Miss Rebels. Losing your head coach before the playoffs, yeah, they're going to go out there with something.
When you're the sixth team, you have a chance, you have a legit chance. So you're not, all due respect to Tulane and James Madison, but you're not a Tulane and James Madison
exactly
that got in because you're a Group of 5 team and you're the 20th and 24th ranked team in the country. You're a 6th team in the country and you decide to leave.
Yeah,
I will never respect a guy for doing that. I'm not saying, that I don't like his decision because I think it's a good move for him. I think it's a good move for LSU. The only person that's bad for is for Ole Miss and for those players.
And they have this most sour taste in their mouth, and they are going to unload in a closer game, though. And I think Ole Miss will take this game, especially in Oxford, Mississippi. Give me Ole Miss.
The last game of the quarterfinals, the nightcap on Saturday night in Eugene, should be another good one.
I love Eugene. That place gets electric.
Start, should be electric. James Madison, the Dukes, going to Eugene and taking on the Mighty Ducks of Oregon. I love this matchup. Two fun brands in college football. And JMU, this is their biggest game
ever.
Coming from the FCS 3 years ago, who would have thought that you're playing Oregon with the chance to move on and go to the national quarterfinals? Surreal to think about for that program. Could be a really cool story if they get it done. I'll be rooting for them in that game.
I will be too.
I will be. But I'm going to have the Oregon Ducks win in that game.
Yeah, Dante Moore's having too great of a season for JMU to even keep up with.
Let me just say, Coach Dan Lanning, he's
amazing.
One of the most humble people
he really is
ever. I see all of his social media posts when he's posting him and his kids going out to eat every week. He just looks like a normal dad.
Yeah.
I mean, you would never expect it. I mean, the dude, he's going out and he's brought the kids to Denny's, for pancakes. It's just him and it's just such wholesome stuff,
Yeah.
He's such a humble guy. It's a guy that you can really root for, and a team that I will be rooting for if they get past James Madison.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this matchup. But like you said, Dan Lanning, I think he just knows how to coach, especially when he plays these Group of 5 teams. So give me the Oregon Mighty Ducks to go move on to play the Red Raiders.
All right, that's done with that first round, and let's move on to the second round now, where we move on to New Year's Eve. Our only New Year's Eve game that we have this year starts at 7:30 that night, and it's the Ohio State Buckeyes as the number 2 seed in that game. If you remember 2 or 3 years ago on New Year's Eve, that last second kick as the clock struck midnight.
Yep.
To lose the game against Georgia.
That was hilarious.
Georgia ended up going on to win against TCU, destroying them in that national championship. But nonetheless, in this scenario for me, it would be the Miami Hurricanes playing on that New Year's Eve game, the last game of 2025 for the college football season. I'm going to have Ohio State winning that game. Will not be in Columbus. It is going to be the Cotton Bowl in AT&T Stadium. So it won't be necessarily close to either team. But that being said, both teams are going to travel well. And I think Ohio State's the better team. Obviously, Miami just barely getting in. I think sneaking by A&M is going to be just enough for them. Playing another game in Texas won't be enough, though. And I think Ohio State moves on.
In this scenario, I have the Texas A&M Aggies, which is basically like another home game for them. Maybe a Kyle Field Jr. playing the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Didn't even think about that because I obviously had Miami winning, but that's definitely something that could play into this game.
I definitely think so as well. I just don't think they're matched up well or good enough against the Buckeyes. I have the Buckeyes moving on to the semifinals for the second straight year. So let's see it.
Yeah, third game here. The first game of 2026, I'm pretty sure, unless there's a game that starts at 11 or something. But this game starts at noon, and it's going to be the Orange Bowl. Texas Tech Raiders taking on the Oregon Ducks and Dan Lanning and his squad.
I love this matchup,
and
man.
This is, once again, a great matchup. If JMU gets in here, won't be as hype as it would be if it's these two teams, the 4 and 5 in this bracket, and that's always something to see.
And that is okay.
And that is definitely okay. And I would be very excited for this matchup. Great offensive Oregon versus maybe the best defense in the country of Texas Tech with Jacob Rodriguez and that defensive line flying around.
Yep.
But I don't think that'll be enough. I think the week is going to hurt those Big 12 champs and the Texas Tech Raiders. And I think that Oregon gets it done. I think they've been here before. Maybe not all those players, but at least that coaching staff and some of those players have been in this scenario before. They have a sour taste from last year, losing in this round to Ohio State. So I think they're going to get it done. And I think they're going to win the Orange Bowl actually pretty handily against Texas Tech.
This is a great matchup. You just brought up, you think it's going to hurt Texas Tech, and I definitely understand that point. But for my point that I will bring up, I don't know. I mean, I know obviously you prepare for this game as if either team wins, but let's be honest. Texas Tech has a ton of film on Oregon. They're not watching film on JMU this week. I'm sorry to all the Dukes fans out there. You know, they're studying Mighty Duck film for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And I think
that is an advantage that sorry to cut in here, but that's an advantage that Texas Tech does have over an Indiana or an Ohio State.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And with that being said, Texas Tech has the most blowout wins in the country. And I know sometimes we get to this point in the season and all those blowout wins don't help at all because you're not used to playing a close game. But I think in the style and the fashion that they have won these games, I think will help them late in the game. And I think will ultimately help Texas Tech beat Oregon in the Orange Bowl. I have Texas Tech going on to play the matchup we will talk about next.
The next game here is the Rose Bowl, the all-coveted Rose Bowl, and it will be a Big Ten team in the Rose Bowl against a team who the last time they were in the Rose Bowl, they did lose. It will be the Indiana Hoosiers in my scenario, and I think in yours as well. The Indiana Hoosiers taking on the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Yep.
What a game this would be. I can already picture it. 4 o'clock on New Year's Day.
Yep.
You know, the sun is setting
Yep.
in Pasadena, California. The Rose Bowl parade just wrapped up, and the people are filing into the stadium. You know, they pan to the crowd. One side of it, burnt maroon kind of color. The other side, a bright crimson red.
Still maroonish, though.
And it's some fans that are getting hype. It's not as cool as a yellow or a green.
Yeah, because it is a lot of red in
I'm trying to
stadium.
set the stage here, though.
Okay,
the end zones are painted.
I'll let you have your moment.
The colors of their sides. And I think Fernando Mendoza and Kurt Cignetti trot out of that tunnel against Kalen DeBoer and Ty Simpson on the other side. And I think they take him down. I think they extend the best season of Indiana football up to this point in the Cignetti era and in just the era of Indiana football. And I think they move on. And I think they win this game.
That's electric. I think the most important thing that helped me pick this game was what we saw last week. And the most important thing that if you take one thing away from Conference Championship week, there's only one thing you take away, is that this Indiana defense is legit. They are legit. And I think that will ultimately help them in the end of the day against the Ty Simpson and Kalen DeBoer led Alabama Crimson Tide. And I think Indiana, congratulations. Kurt Cignetti is so pissed from that playoff last year where there was a big letdown at the end of the season. And I don't think that happens again. I don't see Indiana losing this game because they lost the game last year against Notre Dame in an awful, gut-wrenching loss for that Hoosier team. And I know there's a lot of teams, or a lot of players on that Indiana team that remember that loss. And I think we'll ultimately help them have some roses in their mouth at the end of the day. Get a Rose Bowl ring because that is a thing. Let's go. I love the Rose Bowl. Personally, I know the national championship is awesome. I wish the national championship was the Rose Bowl.
I think that would take away from it.
It probably would.
I love it. I mean, I'm telling you, the most nervous I've ever been for a game of one of my teams, not going to lie, was the Michigan-Alabama game. And if you know me, that's kind of surprising because of how nervous I get for Bills playoff games or even for a Clippers or Yankees playoff game.
Yeah.
But that game, I don't know if it just felt like because it was just me rooting for Michigan and not a room full of people with me.
Yeah.
Which they were rooting for, but not outwardly like I was.
Yeah.
But at
Makes
the same
sense.
time, it felt like it was more when it was in the semis, not in the quarters. That's all I'm going to say.
I do hope it goes back to the semis eventually. But yeah,
It rotates every
does.
every year. But the last game of this quarterfinal round would be the Sugar Bowl, if you haven't figured it out already, in New Orleans.
Sugar. Bum, 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 bum.
And this would be an interesting matchup here because it'd be Ole Miss and Georgia. Close game for both these teams. I think the fan bases would travel well. But, I think the, quote, Cinderella without Lane Kiffin run ends here for Ole Miss. And I think Georgia, Kirby Smart, extend their run as well and move on to the semifinals again.
If Lane Kiffin's coaching in this game, I'm picking Ole Miss. I'm not going to lie. Lane Kiffin's not in this game. And just like you said, that Cinderella run without their head coach is over. I also have the Kirby Smart-led Bulldogs because of the way they played against Alabama, controlling all three phases through all four quarters. Their offense looked good. Gunnar Stockton looked good. Their defense looked great. Everything looked great. And I think this week to prepare will help them. This might be a similar situation which I have in Texas Tech, where they will probably not be watching a lot of Tulane film. They will be watching a lot of film on Ole Miss, which they did beat in the regular season. I have the Georgia Bulldogs moving on to the semifinals, just like you do.
All right, so our final four, I have Oregon and Indiana playing in the Peach Bowl, and you have
Texas Tech and Indiana in the Peach Bowl.
But the first game of that round will be on January 8th, which is Thursday at 7:30 p.m. It'll be the Verbo Fiesta Bowl, which is always a fan favorite as well.
The Fiesta Bowl in general.
And in my bracket, and I think in yours as well, it'll be Georgia and Ohio State.
It is.
A familiar matchup in these playoffs. Not as often as you think it would be matched up with each other because they've both been in there so often. But I'm not sure if they've even been matched up against each other.
Since the New Year's Eve?
Yeah.
I don't think they have either.
So, wow, this is quite the matchup right here. But regardless.
Who did Georgia lose to last? Oh, did they lose to Ohio State last year, Georgia?
I'm not sure. I can't remember.
I
think Georgia lost to Notre Dame.
Oh, you might
I don't
be
know.
right.
Texas was in there as well. But regardless.
Yeah, because
I think I have Ohio State winning this game.
Ohio State did play Texas.
Yeah, I have Ohio State winning this game against Georgia. This will be probably the best game of the college football season. Not going to lie. Two powerhouse teams who are well coached, know how to play ball, and have higher aspirations than most people. And I think that Ohio State takes it this year. And I think that they go to the national championship.
You have two great coaches in Ryan Day, Kirby Smart. It's a battle of the Reds here. Got Ohio State, who obviously everybody knows a lot about their team. Everybody knows about Georgia. It's going to be a jam-packed game for the Fiesta Bowl. There's always magic that happens in the Fiesta Bowl. We date all the way back to the Statue of Liberty for Boise, getting in the end zone against Oklahoma. This is a great bowl. I wish it was still the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl. It felt better when it was Tostitos Fiesta Bowl. But it's Verbo now. Congrats, Verbo. That's a huge sponsorship for them. There's one thing screaming to me in this game for the reason why I'm picking who I'm picking. And I know I also agree this might be the best college football game of this entire season. And for me, we have two championship head coaches. We do. But in this scenario, you see who's on the other side of that bracket if you're Ohio State. And you see Indiana. And you want another shot at them so bad that this will help them propel all the way to the national championship and ultimately be playing for the chance. We will get into it in a little bit to see a matchup that they have seen very, very recently.
Yeah, the next matchup for me is Oregon and Indiana, and I think
that's a great rematch for
it'd be a great rematch once again of I have three Big Ten teams in my semifinals here. If you figured it out by now, but I think that these two teams are, I think out of the four teams that I have left, I think they're 3 and 4 best teams if I had to pick from top down. But with that being said, they still play each other in this scenario, and I think that it would still be a great game. And I think that the momentum of Indiana would be too much for Dan Lanning and Dante Moore this time around. In the Peach Bowl, especially, Oregon has to travel all the way out to Atlanta for that game, which won't stop them because they've been traveling cross country all year.
Yep.
Being in the Big Ten now, but I still think Indiana wins that game and sets up a rematch of the Big Ten championship for the national championship in Miami.
For this game, I have Indiana and Texas Tech. And I think that this is where Texas Tech's Cinderella run ends. I think this is where they meet their match. They meet the team that they can't blow out. They meet the team that matches up very well. They're going to get outcoached by Curt Cignetti, who has been on fire this year, and the number 1 seeded Indiana Hoosiers will move on to the national championship, which we have the same exact matchup.
We do. We have Indiana versus Ohio State, rematch of the Big Ten championship, like I just said, and now the national championship, which will be in Miami.
I hope it pours.
January 19th, which is a Monday, at like usual at 7:30 p.m. Let's stop with the Monday games. I get it. I know it's on MLK Day, but at the same time, let's move it to Sundays or Saturdays. Let's keep it college football. But anyway, that is the national championship date, and I think that this game would be amazing. Be a rematch of this matchup that we just saw last week as we're recording this, and I think that like I said before, it's tough to beat a team twice, but when that team that you beat is Ohio State, it's harder to beat them. And I think that in a national championship game where they've been here just last year, a lot of these guys were there. Not their quarterback, but a lot of the other guys on the team. And I think that as much as it hurts me to say, I think that Ohio State will win the national championship this year. It's a prediction that I really hope I'm wrong on, but it's kind of the same scenario as me, picking the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing, but I think Ohio State takes it this year.
We have a great matchup, like we just mentioned, rematch. A lot of feelings here between these two teams. I could tell you there's going to be one person that's ready to play this game. I don't know his name. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know his name. And it's that Ohio State kicker. He is definitely beating himself up every single day about missing that chip shot to tie it up to possibly force overtime.
Now, this could be one of those scenarios where you see him come back and he hits like the game winner. It's like
could
one of those.
Could be that storyline. But at this point in the season, I think it's too much for Curt Cignetti's defense that had this one hell of a run to get here. And that defense finally falls apart, unfortunately. And I think that Jeremiah Smith will have that big ring thing he had last year. He said he wanted at least 2 more of them. I think this is another one right there. I think the Ohio State Buckeyes are back-to-back national champions. Unfortunately, I don't want to say it either. I mean, it hurts you more than it hurts me, but yeah.
I think in a weird way, to wrap this up, I think this reminds me a lot of the Dodgers-Blue Jays World Series. It's a team that, like, Indiana's there, and you have the almighty Ohio State Dodgers kind of side, and then you have the fun and
underdog
new
mentality.
and underdog, and we haven't been here in a while or ever kind of scenario with Indiana and the Blue Jays. And then it's a scenario where even like, well, you know how this is going to turn out though, and it's one of those where you're like, oh, we might actually not know how this is going to turn out, and then it turns out how you think it was the whole time. Like the Dodgers going down and then coming back winning the World Series, even in a game where they had to come back within that game multiple times and win that game. But they still ended up winning. I think it's going to be the same scenario with these two teams where Indiana's up in the game and you're like, oh, they actually might win the championship. Like, what are we like? Blue Jays might win the World Series. Like, Indiana might win the championship kind of feeling.
Wow.
And then
what a relation, though.
You know what I mean, though? And then Ohio State comes back and you're like, oh, well, they were going to do it all along. So it's kind of how I feel right now. But excited to see this college football playoff. I think this will be hopefully better than last year's 12-team playoff. But it might be the last year of the 12-team playoff as well, because maybe next year they'll be implementing the 16 teams in resume week. So we'll make a phone call and make that happen. But
absolutely,
as always, you have any thoughts about this?
I'm really excited. I just want to reach out to everybody who's listening right now. Wish them a happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year's, everything. Just happy holidays in general. Spend some time with your family.
Stay safe
and
out
loved
there,
ones.
too.
Stay safe. It's getting a little, especially for our Buffalo listeners. You know how it gets around
A little
this time
icy
of
out
year.
there.
A little
A
icy.
little icy out there.
But yeah, have a safe and lovely holiday season.
Should be some good football, too, to watch. And as always, thanks for sticking with us, and have a day.
Have a day.